What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. Amron, rookie drafts are fully underway, and I imagine you guys are kind of in a similar boat as I am, where you get on the clock and it's like the 4:12 or like the 5:05. I know there's some 5-round rookie drafts that I'm in, and it's like, God damn, like what happened to all the good players? So I wanted to make a video going through some of those late round dart throw type players. We're going to talk about my 5 favorite players to take in these Dynasty rookie drafts outside of the first 2 rounds. We have like one third rounder, another 4th rounder, and then we got a couple dart throws that you can kind of stash on your taxi squad. So just to give you guys some names and some targets to go after in the late rounds of your rookie draft, we went over my top 15 running backs, top 10 wide receivers the last few days. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper than that because rookie drafts are maybe not wrapping up, because you're going to have some rookie drafts like just now starting, but the ones that started right after the NFL draft are getting into pretty yucky territory where it's like, you're debating between Dorian Thompson-Robinson and like Will Mallory with those picks. So with all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home.
Now I do want to say, there are no wide receivers on this list. Any of these wide receivers you see in like the 3rd plus round of rookie drafts, I mean, if ADP comes to a point where a player's just like slipping way too far, fine, I'll take a wide receiver. But most of the time, I'm trying to shy away from those guys. These guys, a lot of the time, just clog your roster. You've seen in the past, I mean, just last year, Danny Gray, Khalil Shakur, like these guys are probably just kind of clogging your bench and rotting away there. Tylan Wallace a few years ago, Tyler Johnson. Of course, you get some hits. We saw Romeo Doubs last year, but most of the time, they're going to die on your bench, never going to make your lineup. And the reason why I would just rather go for like running backs, and you can even go for quarterbacks and tight ends too, but with running backs in particular, they're so nice in terms of a late round asset because they are an asset that has a short shelf life, right? Like a sort of a short fuse. And essentially what it's going to come down to is, will this running back make the team? And then if he makes the team, if the starter goes down, does he now come up and give you 15 points per game, right? Like even if, I'm trying to think of, some of these late round, like Kayshon Boutte. Let's say Juju Smith-Schuster gets hurt. Let's say he's out. It's very clear that now Kayshon Boutte is going to come in there. You probably still aren't starting him in like a start 9, start 10 league. But if you have a running back, the running back we're going to talk about here in a second, Zach Evans, if K-Makers goes down and Zach Evans is a perceived starter, he's a very easy, start. He is your RB2, and we've seen this over the years with guys like Khalil Herbert, Zonovan Knight, Samaje Perine. Starter goes down, you come in, you give, your 15 points per game, which is really useful in your lineup, and it's very obvious when to start these guys, so there's a lot of utility there. So Zach Evans is probably the least actual sleeper here. He goes at the 308 according to Adeko's ADP. I'll probably try and link that down below. He has free ADP that scrubs rookie drafts right now, which is just an insane resource to have out there for completely free. But Zach Evans is probably my favorite, like 3rd round lottery ticket dart throw here. He goes 6th round, 215th overall to the Rams. And I kind of regret going 15 deep in our running back video because we've already talked about Zach Evans, but I do want to sort of touch on him one last time. Now, when we talk about Zach Evans, he is in a wide open depth chart. He is behind just Cam Akers, really. Kyron Williams, slow, ineffective, Saturday day 3 guy, and then Ronnie Rivers and Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown's like 30 and an undrafted free agent. Ronnie Rivers also an undrafted free agent. It is an absolute wasteland. And Cam Akers looked good down the stretch last year, but I think we forget that, like, remember the Rams-Bills game in week 1? We all thought, like, okay, it was probably going to be 50-50 split. Darrell Henderson... All right, I don't know why I had like a coughing attack there. I really just had to take like a 5-10 minute break, like drink, chill out, remove the glasses, tears streaming down my face. But what I was talking about, Darrell Henderson, pretty much we thought Cam Akers was going to be the week 1 like lead, right? And then Darrell Henderson came out first week, out-touched him, and then there was like a stretch where Cam Akers was like sitting out games mid-season. Darrell Henderson was the main guy, and then Darrell Henderson gets cut. And then Cam Akers is the lead guy. So there's just so many moving parts. And we've seen a lot of the time with these McVay offenses, whether it's, Malcolm Brown or CJ Anderson, even just like filling in for Todd Gurley back in the day, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. When he has a main running back, they usually get a ton of volume. So I like betting on Zach Evans, especially because he's not a guy who's going to pop in my model. But that's because he split time with 2 NFL running backs. He split time with Kendre Miller at TCU, who was a 3rd-round pick, And then Quinshon Judkins, who's a guy, maybe we'll do a 2025 video here soon, but Quinshon Judkins is a stud. He's like a first-round Devy pick, went to Ole Miss, and just absolutely dominated. He had like 1,000+ rushing yards last year in the SEC as a true freshman. Like, he looks like the real deal. But on a per-touch basis, which is what Noah Hill's like really specializes in, and I know that some people are kind of like weird about his metrics compare teammate to player, right? So when we look at Zach Evans' efficiency stats, you have yards per carry plus. All of these stats, for the most part, compare what a running back does compared to the other teammates in his backfield, right? So on a yards per carry basis, he was great. Missed tackles forced per attempt. Chunk rate, I think that's breakaway conversion rate is BCR. Box adjusted efficiency rating, 63rd percentile. Across the board, pretty damn good, with the context that his entire career, he's been next to studs at the running back position. So I think it's worth mentioning. And then we also know that he catches passes, which is really nice. We look here, and he had a second-year receiving yard market share that was sort of right next to where Devin Achane was. I just sort of put a bunch of running backs that are, sort of going around where he is, or actually, no, this is all like the day 2 running backs, I think, or like the 3rd round running backs. But you can see that second year is really, really encouraging for his receiving upside. So he's a guy, I mean, he weighed in light at the combine, 202 pounds, but everyone seems to believe that he plays heavier than that. He looks way bigger than that. I think even though he's slightly undersized, I do think that he can sort of shoulder a 3-down workload, a 3-down skill set. So that's why I like him, because I do think there's not a lot of competition there. We've seen McVay with these running backs, and Cam Akers is really your only stopgap to production. So there's a chance he's cut, right? Day 3 picks are pretty rough, but that's kind of what we're betting on here. He gets cut, you drop him from your roster, boom. You have an open roster spot for whatever the heck you want in season, whether that's, maybe Rex Burkhead comes in and makes some noise. I feel like, I don't know, we've had some guys in the past you can sort of pick up off waivers. I want to say Jeff Wilson was probably a guy you maybe could have picked up off waivers, so it is valuable not to just have wide receivers clogging up those spots. And then I will say a bonus, Tiyon Evans, a guy who I didn't really know about pre-draft. Like, I sort of heard his name, and then I looked into his story, and it's very weird. It is, like, this guy, I don't know if Forrest Gump is the word you want to use, but very weird. His career stats are like, I don't think he has combined 1,000 rushing yards in the NCAA, but he was invited to the combine and then was a priority undrafted free agent. And then he also goes to the Rams. So the same reason to like Zach Evans because of that depth chart, same reason to like Tiyon Evans. And I might even be saying his name wrong, but this is his bio from NFL.com. He played quarterback his senior year in high school. After playing 2 prior seasons at running back, he rushed for over 2,000 yards in each of those years, which is crazy. He signed with the community college. He went to JUCO, had like a crazy amount of production, and then, or wait, no, they're saying, but the school did not play in 2020 due to COVID-19 concerns. So he played in 2019. They didn't play in 2020. He was electric for them. He ended up being the number 1 JUCO recruit at running back, number 3 overall coming out. He ends up going to Tennessee. He gets hurt. He ends up going to Louisville. He gets hurt. But on a per-touch basis, he's been great. You can see 6.4 yards per carry on that player profiler cutout, which is like, I don't know, like 80-something percentile. He runs a 4.5. 88th percentile speed score. He's 5'10", 225 pounds. Just making sure I'm reading off that right. Yeah, so he's a big boy. He runs fast, and it's like, it's almost, I'd almost rather bet on this guy than a, 4-year mega producer like Patrick Taylor at Memphis, or maybe not. He wasn't a 4-year mega producer, but these guys who are mega producers, like, there's almost like this uncertainty aspect to this guy's profile that is really interesting. He got a combine invite despite not really producing anywhere. So he is somebody that we're talking about, like taxi squad after the draft, stashing him there, or I took him in the 5th round today. So something like that. I think Tiyon Evans is a really nice running back with size and speed and kind of this weird, like, again, he was a stud in high school. He was a stud in junior college, and then just kind of had like injuries and weird stuff in his college career, but he still got a combine invite and was still signed in the NFL. So there's something there, After that, we're going to talk about a tight end here, Luke Schoonmaker. And he's somebody that didn't get any love in this tight end class just because of how good the class is. But this is a guy who is really good. He went 2nd round to the Dallas Cowboys, where we thought, Michael Mayer would go, or where we thought a Dalton Kincaid could go. They end up with Luke Schoonmaker here. And I could be saying that name wrong, but he is a freak of nature. He hits all of those top percentiles on player profiler. We look here at his relative athletic score. He's a guy who is 6'5", 250 pounds, runs a 4.63. I like a comparison to Jordan Cameron. He was the tight end 3 in points per game in 2013, had like a very short stint of being good, but we kind of see that with tight ends like a Gary Barnidge type. Real ones out there know like the old Maddens, like Madden 14, like Jordan Cameron used to be a nice budget beast on there. But he's one of these guys that is not only big and fast, right? So 6'5", 250, running a 4.6. He's super agile. Those shuttle and 3-cone scores are ridiculous. 4.27, 6.81. This is a guy who's 6'5", 250 pounds, super nimble on his feet. He has size, speed, agility. Since 2007, I have an agility score. Agility score is literally just shuttle time plus 3-cone time, and then just whoever has the lowest score is the highest up, right? Because you just want to be the fastest. There's only 4 tight ends that have a higher or a better agility score than Luke Schoonmaker, and that's not even size adjusting anything. So he is a monster. Now, I will say, not the cleanest production profile. He was at a run-heavy scheme at Michigan. He didn't really play until later on in his career. He didn't really produce until he was like a 4th or 5th year senior. He's already 24, which isn't great, right? You can see there like 24.5 that is. So that's pretty brutal. And that took a pretty big ding on his profile. But even with that giving him a pretty big ding, he still shows up as a silver in the RS grades, which is nice. And crazy enough, again, this guy is, the like tight end 6 in this class. In the RS grades, again, tier over everything. So, he's in the same tier as Dolchich and McBride from last year, but the RS grades prefers him to all of them, which is pretty crazy just given Luke Schoonmaker having zero hype in this class. It just goes to show how crazy this tight end class is. But in another year, like Luke Schoonmaker would be fighting for like tight end 1 in that class. And maybe instead of going, I have his ADP here. When I last checked was 403. Maybe in another year where it's not so crazy at tight end, he'd be like a mid to early 3rd. So Luke Schoonmaker is a guy I really like. He shows up well in the RS grades. Fast, agility, size, second-round draft capital. He's a Lance Zierlein guy too, which like low-key, I know Lance Zierlein's really known for running back evaluations, but I use him for all positions because he's pretty much as good as draft capital, which means, of course, it's like, okay, if he's as good as draft capital, what's that adding? But the guys that he like don't match up with the draft capital all the time. So it's nice to kind of compare and contrast and just sort of like, have a third-party draft capital that's like a lesser input. And we look here, Luke Schoonmaker, 6.36. That's a like second-round grade from Lance Zierlein. It's ahead of Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta. It's right in the mix with Darnell Washington. He liked him. He comped him to Dawson Knox, which I kind of like as a comp too, like somewhere between Dawson Knox, Jordan Cameron. I don't know that he's going to be a superstar, but like a 4th-round tight end, second-round draft capital. He goes to the Cowboys where, yes, they have Jake Ferguson and Hendershot, but if they felt so good about those guys, they wouldn't have drafted a Luke Schoonmaker in the 2nd round, which is like pretty crazy draft capital. And that offense, they lost Kellen Moore, but they're definitely looking for a Dalton Schultz replacement. And as long as Dak is there, the offense should be pretty efficient. So I love his value. I would take him as high as like the late 3rd right now. So Luke Schoonmaker is a guy like when all the elite tight ends are off the board, or all the big names are off the board, he's a guy you can kind of slide in there in the 4th round. Now another 4th round guy we have, he's going at the 404 in rookie drafts, DeWayne Mcbride. I know it's probably DeWayne Mcbride, but I just wanted to overemphasize that. He goes 7th round, 222nd overall to the Minnesota Vikings. And admittedly, this has been a guy that I've been lower on in the process, right? Like he's not been someone that pops. He's not going to pop in a model because he played at UAB. He doesn't really catch passes, but he does have like an interesting profile where he's 5'10", 215 pounds, early declare out of UAB, which is really rare, right? We usually see, early declares from Georgia's and, your big schools. Going to UAB and getting drafted before your senior year is really impressive. Now, again, the biggest issue, he only has 5 career receptions in 3 years of playing football. But to make up for it, like this is a box score that I would do if I was playing like Road to Glory on NCAA 14, using a running back and just like playing in Conference USA for fun. Like look at this game log. Of course, I don't know why he didn't play in week 1, but against Liberty, 20 for 177 and a touchdown, 8.9 yards per carry, 223 yards. I know that, guys, I know the competition's not great, right? We're talking Georgia Southern and Liberty, but wouldn't you rather him just like absolutely put up video game numbers? Like these are video game numbers. This is 29 or 24 for 200 and no touchdown against Western Kentucky. You have 16 for 272 and a touchdown versus Louisiana Tech, who was actually pretty decent last year. Like just crazy numbers. Now, Louisiana State is the one where he struggled, but that was against LSU. LSU is going to get, 5-star recruits on the D-line. You're not going to get any push from your offensive line against LSU. So I'm not going to hold that against him. The thing you can hold against him is bad competition, no receiving profile. But we're talking about a guy with a 7.4 career yards per carry, 95th percentile. The game logs from that season is absolutely insane. If we look on a per touch basis too, his efficiency metrics are great. He's at the top of this chart. I believe this is from Arjun over at PFF. 100th percentile yards after contact per attempt, 97th percentile missed tackles forced per attempt, 100th percentile explosive run rate, but the yards per run, 0.75 percentile. So again, not a guy who's going to catch passes and have a 3-down skill set. But when we get to this area, especially on the Vikings, right, he gets drafted to the Vikings, which has Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell, and what should be a good offense. I don't hate having one of these grinders. He does sort of come off to me like sort of what Ronald Jones was for the Bucs when they had like Tom Brady, and he had like that 1 year where he was pretty damn good. Gus Edwards on the Ravens, like I think he can be one of these between the tackles grinders, like a Damian Harris too. I think he does look like that, and if he can be that efficient, he can almost look like a Rashad Penny too, kind of Rashad Penny, Damian Harris like. So he is very interesting. Again, high scoring offense. Dalvin Cook. I know Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison is there. Dalvin Cook is a cut candidate. They could save $9 million this year if he's cut, $12.5 million the next offseason if he's cut next offseason. Madison's under contract through 2024, but he wasn't drafted by this Kevin O'Connell regime, and we still haven't seen like Dalvin Cook go down and Alexander Mattison being used in that same like handcuff. I mean, he was a guy that you would rank on weekly rankings like top 6 if Dalvin Cook went down. Since the new regime came in, I don't know that he would still be looked at that way. So they could favor the new guy with some juice, kind of like with Zonovan Knight with like Michael Carter already there last year. So he's a nice 4th-round flyer. He could end up being, a Gus Edwards, a Damian Harris, one of these guys who specializes as a pure between the tackles rusher. And I think there's value in that when you have like a prolific offense with Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. After that, we're getting deeper though. So this is 509 in rookie drafts, pretty much free. And we're going to talk about Zack Kuntz. I feel like you could say that name pretty crazy if you wanted to, but Zack Kuntz is a very weird tight end prospect. You see here, the athleticism pops out. He has all the top percentiles. He is the number 1 all-time most athletic tight end in Player Profiler's database. I think that's something along the lines of relative athletic score, but you can even see it relative athletic score too. He is number 1 for Player Profiler. He is number 1 for RAS, where you can see like the all-time grades. It's him, then Jelani Woods, Jordan Cameron's up there, Mike Gesicki, Vernon Davis. It's insane. I mean, he runs... it's truly ridiculous. Like I want to read these real quick. I mean, he ran at even when they adjust for his pro day, which I don't adjust for pro days, but we're talking 4.5 flat speed at 6'7", 255 pounds, elite agility score, elite explosion. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, this is where things get a little bit sobering though. His path in college was very weird. Now I will say he goes 7th round to the Jets, which is like, not great draft capital. He's a developmental guy. But he's very weird. This is a guy who is not right. He comes out of Old Dominion, so you would think, okay, this is like a small school guy, but also you're not 6'7" and put up these kinds of numbers being a nobody. You know what I mean? So if we look at Zack Kuntz, like it's really weird. He was actually a 4-star recruit in his recruiting class, ahead of Kyle Pitts, which is funny to look at now. But like to Penn State, and he was a guy where his dad played Maryland football, his brother played football at Penn State. Like they have just I guess kind of a breeding ground of crazy athletes in that family. But what happened was I think he played like 4 years at Penn State. He played 3 years at Penn State. He had just 3 career receptions. He couldn't get on the field over Pat Freiermuth, which, makes sense. Pat Freiermuth is a damn good tight end in his own right. He transfers to Old Dominion. He finally produces. His like per game numbers are fine, but they're not like, if you're at Old Dominion, you should be really, really dominating. He wasn't really, really dominating, but then he comes to the combine and just absolutely puts on a show, right? Again, those athleticism numbers are wild. 6'7", 255 pounds, 4.5 speed, 40-inch vertical, elite agility. Like, it is insane. And when we talk about tight ends, athleticism, in terms of the RS grades, super low input for wide receivers. Doesn't really matter a ton, but for tight ends, it's the end-all, be-all athleticism. Like, because when we talk about the top guys, they're all... None of them are even first-round picks. Like, we talk about Rob Gronkowski. We talk about Kelsey. We talk about Andrews, Waller, Kittle, freak agility score, freak size speed guy. Darren Waller, freak size speed guy. Kelsey size speed guy. Gronk size speed guy. A lot of these guys at the top, of course, you do have like your Zach Ertz and stuff, but a lot of these guys at the top were just freak athletes taken later in the draft, and they end up sort of panning out. So I don't mind Zack Kuntz. I don't think he's going to – I don't know how long it's going to take, right? It takes a long time for these tight ends to develop. He'll probably be sort of collecting dust on your taxi squad, but I don't mind, having him hang around for a year or two just because the upside is crazy. And we talk about the Jets, right? They have Aaron Rodgers, which is nice, and there's no long-term solution at tight end for them. Jeremy Ruckert's a guy that took on day 2 last year, but he's like unproven and more of a blocking tight end. And then you have Conklin, Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzoma, who are short-term options at best at tight end. So by the time that their contracts are up, like Zack Kuntz will be finally maybe getting on the field. So I don't mind, in the 5th round, taking a flyer on Zack Kuntz, plopping him on the taxi squad and hoping something works out there. Now, the last guy we'll talk about, 7th round pick. He's going undrafted in rookie drafts right now. He's my favorite. Him and Tiyon Evans are my 2 favorites right now to stash in your taxi squad, or just take with like your 5th round pick in rookie drafts. But we'll talk about Lew Nichols right here. Lew Nichols III. And I hope I'm saying his name right. Admittedly, he goes 7th round, 235th overall to the Green Bay Packers. Not a great landing spot, right? He's behind AJ Green, he's behind Aaron Jones, but the RB3 spot is wide open. They don't really have anybody there. I think they have like maybe Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson, like 2 guys who are cut candidates. So it's a decent spot, right? He can probably get a roster spot on there. You have AJ Dillon, who's going to be a free agent after the season. You have Aaron Jones, who's a cut candidate as well after the season. So there is a path. And the reason I really like Lew Nichols is because he's a super, super rare skill set. Like, he almost looks like a Ramondre Stevenson. Don't run crazy with a Ramondre Stevenson comp, but this is a guy who is 5'9", 222 pounds. So that's massive, right? And the reason I love Ramondre Stevenson is because right now it is Eckler, McCaffrey, and then from a pass catching standpoint, Ramondre's in that next tier. But he's 230 pounds, whereas Eckler and McCaffrey are, floating around like 199 to like 204, 205. So being that massive and also catching passes is great because it means you can get rammed between the tackles. You can be a third, all-purpose back, everything like that. And Lew Nichols is a guy who is 5'9", 222 pounds. Of course, he played at Central Michigan, but in his junior year had 40 receptions on an 11.8% target share. 222 pounds, like 40 catches in a season is crazy. He had 21 catches in that next season. So for a guy of his size, he can catch passes and play on all 3 downs, which is really, really intriguing. Now, he joins this list, which isn't like a bulletproof list at all, but he joins this list of guys who are 220 pounds or heavier, day 3 draft capital, 30 BMI or higher. So we're talking thick boys, big boys, but then I ranked them by their best market share of receiving yard season. So just in terms of their market share within their offense. And he gets on this list of guys that are pretty decent. Again, you're not going to have, a list of all no-doubters, but I mean, it's not bad at all to be on a list with Jay Ajayi and Ramondre Stevenson and Rashad Jennings and Andre Brown and Spencer Ware. It's a list of guys who have gotten onto an NFL field and done something in a handcuff role, and that's kind of what you're drafting here. So I think he's a great dart throw to be on your taxi squad. Again, really unique 3-down skill set for his size. Again, we want committee backs who not only can get on the field if the starter goes down, but have some kind of 3-down role, because if not, you just kind of have 2 running backs splitting carries and you can't really start either of them. I think Lew Nichols, he might be bad, right? I think his yards per carry and his pure rush stuff isn't great, but it's really interesting. It's a really unique profile on a team without like a super, super long-term answer at running back. So I don't know. I think if like AJ Dillon was to go down, or Aaron Jones, like if Aaron Jones goes down, he can kind of be a pass catcher out of the backfield. I wonder if they would utilize him that way. So a lot to like with the profile. Again, you can't really go, like, it's hard to have the most like optimistic view when we're talking about a 7th round NFL draft pick, a guy that you're going to have on a taxi squad in a dynasty league, but someone that I think, again, starter goes down either this year or next year, can maybe fill in and give you some points. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want my entire rookie rankings, that will be on patreon.com/Ron Stewart. As of right now, we have our updated top, I have like my top 50 rookie rankings right now. Superflex Tight End Premium. They are ranked, they're tiered, they're all there for you guys. I have my RS grades already updated. You have every drafted player in this draft class. RS grades are live. You have all my RS grades dating back to 2007. You have everything that I could possibly offer and more. I'm going to have a Dynasty rankings update probably by Saturday night for you guys. And that's going to be my top like 300 Superflex Tight End Premium, rookies included, buy and sell trade targets, buy and sell designations for each player. It's going to be a big undertaking, but we're going to do it. It's all going to be there. Patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You'll find it down below in the description, down below in the comments. Thank you for viewing, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoenaed for misdemeanors. Dreamer, held back asses, Loki still a zen. And I still shake a boat squat.